So in this episode, what we want to do is some various operations with DataGuard. One of the first things we want to do is set up an observer process. So let's try to do that. Databases. I'm going to go to my source database. Availability. Manage the DataGuard. And we're going to eventually enable fast start failover, but to do so we're going to need the observer process. So let's go ahead and configure the observer process. The observer has to be on a host that has been discovered, so let's go ahead and I'm going to use the grid one. So these two are our database hosts, but I'm going to use one that's not one of our database hosts, in this case grid. Okay, the primary database is called source DB, and the target database name is target DB. One of the things I did on the grid is add the TNS names entries for source and target, just in case it's needed. But let's try this now. Let's hit continue again, see what happens. Here we go. Notice that flashback logging has to be enabled, but it has already been enabled, so that's fine. It has to change some things on the target database, so that's fine too, so we'll hit continue. And we'll say yes. It looks like it's starting fast start failover, even though all I've asked it to do is start the observer process, but okay. Fast start failover seems to have been enabled, and the observer has been turned on. One last comment about the observer process. we used grid control to start the observer process, and I placed it on a discovered server, which was called ASYS1-grid, whereas incidentally our grid control is actually running. But I thought it might be helpful to note where that process is running and how to look for it. So one of the things we look for is to look for DG and GRL, and notice that the process is actually running, and it puts the log file in the $oracle home rdbms log directory. Let's just go there. $oracle home rdbms log directory, and then let's do ls. And so there's the log. Let's cap the log, and we can see that the observer process has been started. Another activity that we have to do is we actually have to convert from maximum performance to maximum availability. So let's go ahead and do that. And now it's turned on to maximum availability. Another activity that we have to do is make sure that real-time query is turned on. And when I did this the first time on the OCM exam, it was not enabled. In this particular case, it's already enabled. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually try to disable it and then re-enable it. But the way to enable it from grid control is to click here. So first I'm going to disable it, and then I'm going to go back to re-enabling it and see what happens. Okay, so let's go back to the previous page. Just go to, and we can see that real-time query has been disabled, but now we're going to enable it. So this is how we would do that. This probably got enabled during the creation of it, during the grid control creation of the physical standby, and there was probably a checkbox at that point that says enable real-time query. But it's easy enough to turn on and off. And it looks like it's been done, but let's check. And real-time query has now been enabled. One of the activities that we have to do also is to convert our standby database to a snapshot standby. The way to do that is to hit this convert button, and it's going to fail, and I want to talk about that. So let's go ahead and do that. It's going to say it's failed because I already have the fast start failover enabled. So let's go ahead and disable that, and then we'll do our conversions. All right, now let's hit our convert button. So let's convert to a snapshot standby. And okay, so now let's go ahead and look at the database. Oh, see, now it says role of a snapshot standby. But let's go over there and take a look. I need to look at that. Our target database is located here. notice that it's in Snapshot standby and read write. So let's go ahead and say, let's create a table. Now let's do insert into Now let's go back to grid control, and it now says snapshot standby, but let's convert it back to not. We want to convert it back to a physical standby, so let's go ahead and do that. And it looks like now we have been converted back to a physical standby. Now remember that I had turned off fast start failover, so let's go ahead and turn that back on as well. And it says the observer has not been set, but we turned off the observer, so let's just turn it back on. Oh man, we have to do it all over again. Let's find out. Let's go over there and find out the Oracle home. Back over here. Okay, and then last we see that the real-time query is disabled again, so let's go ahead and re-enable that too. There's a reason for my madness. I do want to re-enable the real-time query because I want to see if that table that we created has is still there. So it should be rolled back, and we'll know that in just a few minutes. So real-time enable is real-time query has been re-enabled. Now let's go back to our database and see if that's really true. I think we want to be here, right? No, we want to be here. All right, so we had created a table called Soleo table. So let's log back into the database. So we see that real-time apply is up and running, and we're back into physical standby. And notice, if we go back, we saw that it had created a table called Soleo table. Let's look at it. And it's not there. So we have successfully rolled back from a snapshot standby back to a physical standby.